Welcome to the Pro Design Builder podcast, a show where professionals and entrepreneurs share their stories, strategies, and secrets to building a thriving business and a successful life. I'm Sam, your host, as we dive deep into the world of life experiences and entrepreneurship. I just want to thank our sponsors, the Pro Design Builder, which is a coaching and consulting firm for real estate investors who want to build spec homes and multifamily units. The Pro Design Builder, it's not just about building a business, it's about building a vision and a life by design. Also, as you guys know, foster care is a mission that's near and dear to my heart. If you ever feel led to give to our foster care initiative, there'll be a link in the description. The work in foster care is never over. I've fostered a number of kids. I've adopted twins, and I'm currently fostering now. So if you ever feel led to give, there'll be a link in the description for that. And without further ado, my guest today, Jay, is a pastor, entrepreneur, author, and speaker dedicated to inspiring others through faith and financial empowerment. With 38 years of ministry, he has experienced both financial hardship and transformation. After struggling in the 08-09, he discovered key financial principles that led him to launch a successful brokerage with over 200 licensed agents nationwide. Jay, I just wanted to say thank you for coming on with us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just tell the people just a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from.
Okay, sure. Yeah, well, I actually grew up and I've always been in Southern California. And I kind of grew up on the west side of there. Kind of, I had a good family. We weren't wealthy, but we were kind of, I guess you would consider us middle class, good family values. I didn't really have a religious or church background or anything growing up at that particular time. But that kind of changed when I was about 16, 17 years of age, when I was kind of introduced to, through somebody in a family that we eventually ended up getting married. I actually got married at 19.
I knew a girl was involved.
Yeah, it's always, that's what always gets
That's
you.
typically
So,
how it happens. Yeah.
yeah, I went basically to see her, and I went back because she was there. I figured if she's going to be there, I'll go. And then meanwhile, God had other plans, and that was the way he got me there.
For sure.
So, soon after that, crazy, I didn't even know what a pastor was before that. And about a year and a half later, all of a sudden, through a conversation that I had with her, she was going through some things and I was listening and I was just kind of responding. And she looked at me and didn't even know why she said it after she said it. But she said, "You know what? You should be a pastor." And for some reason, when she said that, I knew. And so we started to pursue it. Ended up going to a college that a year before I had looked at it. And when I found out she wanted to go there, I had even made the comment, "Wow, this place is so small. If you drive by it, you blink and you miss it. Why would you want to go here?" And again, God just had a sense of humor. And he's kind of shown that throughout my life. So we have 3 children. Like I said, I ended up being in ministry now. I've been a pastor for 38 years at this particular time. And I've always had some big dreams, but it's been rocky along the way. I'm sure we'll get into some of that today.
No,
but,
of course. The vision is never straight. And actually, if you look at my logo, how it has those blips in it,
I see that
there's definitely not a straight path to achieving your goals. So I think that was like a perfect representation when I saw it. My wife even pointed that out. She's like, that's a perfect representation of what life looks like and what business looks like. You're going to have bumps along the road. Sure. And it's a matter of how you adjust, to those, bumps and blips in the road that's going to determine your level of success.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So you covered a little bit about your childhood. What type of family system were was it? Were your parents married? Are they still married?
They were married and were married all the way until they died. Unfortunately, they've both passed away. But and I mean, it was great traditional Judeo-Christian values, but
Mhm.
but interestingly enough, we didn't really have religion in the home, just the values. And part of the reason was my dad had grown up, going to church and everything. But then my mom came from a Jewish background, although she didn't
Mhm.
embrace that.
Yeah.
And so kind of the way it was all made peaceful was we celebrated Christmas in the secular way,
Mhm.
um, and we didn't really do anything as far as any of that stuff was concerned. But I mean, they were there, they were loving parents, they were supportive parents. So I had
Mhm.
a good, strong support system, and I was an only child.
Yeah.
So all the attention was on me.
No, for sure. And I came from a background not completely similar, but my parents were together, and I could point to that as married for almost like 39 years before my dad passed. I could point to that as the one of the single reasons why I'm here, because oftentimes when a parent is not involved, a piece of you is missing, and
Yeah,
you could see that in the person. I don't know if other people could see that, but embracing that family dynamic is important. So I know that definitely helped you a ton in
a ton.
having both parents around. So who would you say was your biggest influence growing up?
Well, it depends. See, family wise, as far as parents are concerned, I mean, I was really close to my mom, really close. And I would share more with my mom. However, my dad did a lot of what I guess you would say the real teaching. He was the one that was teaching me how to read. He was the one that was teaching me how to tie my shoes. He was the one that was hands-on. I became very heavily involved in music, and he would, he got an instrument he had flown back that he had played as a kid. It was a baritone horn, and
Hmm.
he tracked that thing down, and he taught me how to play it, and he would then play with me, and he would spend a lot of time, take me to the park, things like that. So um I'm so grateful as I look back to that now, because I realized as he was working and everything, the sacrifice that it really was for him to put in that time with me. Um, and so those were there. And then there were certain teachers, of course, that stood out. And I would say that the teachers that would stand out the most, it wasn't so much how well they taught, it was how much they cared.
Correct.
Um, I had the opportunity just a few years ago, and then just recently, again, crazy, because we were talking I was on some group on Facebook about, with our elementary school that we went to. And I remember my kindergarten teacher always stood out to me because she just loved me and loved
Hmm.
everybody, right?
Yeah.
And so I was mentioning, oh, I was in this teacher's class, Miss Hoblock's class,
Hmm.
and then somebody spoke up and go, "Oh yeah, me too. Oh yeah, she's doing great." I see, and I'm like, "Doing great."
Still
I figured
around.
she'd been
Yeah.
gone for like 30 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
it's like I saw a ghost, and it's like, "What do you mean she's doing great?" And he goes, "Yeah, my mother is friends with her."
Hmm.
You know, and so I was like, "Wow, I'd really like to see her."
Yeah. Hmm.
So he called, she remembered, I hadn't been in her class for so long, she remembered me exactly,
Oh,
and
wow.
I talked to her on the phone, and then I went and I picked her up, and we went to lunch. She was almost 90 years old, um, and just a great time, and I had to tell her, I said, "Of all the teachers I ever had, you were like one of the first ones, but you've always stood out as my favorite
Oh
because of
man,
how
that's
much
good.
she cared."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually I had a teacher. It's not a story that looks like that,
Mhm.
but left the impact on me. So obviously the Bible says there's power, in the tongue and the
Sure.
ability to lift up or destroy. And he was a great guy, great teacher, but this is just kind of where I was. Right, I was in dropout prevention. I think I had the same teacher for fourth or fifth grade,
Okay.
and I remember him saying to me, and this is based on where I was.
Mhm.
He said, "Sam, I'll bet you $100 you won't graduate high school, right? And then I was like, oh, I'll take that bet. That's not a problem. I'll take that bet.
Yeah.
And I took the bet, and I remember that resonated with me, right? But not in a bad way. It resonated with me in a good way because I did turn my life around, and I ended up getting a full scholarship to play football. And when I did that, I never even mentioned this to him, but I came back to speak to his class and about achieving, wanting more, and making change and stuff like that. But that was important. He embraced me, and that was like important for me step for me of closure in a sense of a time that I wasn't in a great place, but
Yeah.
I had a chance to redeem it, and it did motivate me. That's just kind of something that was important for me to kind of hear as a okay, well, you think this, so now it's time for me to amp this up. So teachers leave a significant impact on you in different ways for sure.
Sure. I'm curious now. Did he do that because he figured it was worth $100 to get you to actually do it, or he really thought that?
I never looked him up on that bet.
Okay.
I think he's definitely very smart, and what's funny is his son played quarterback for my head coach in college, so there was a
Mhm.
connection there. I didn't know that then, but I think he knew he could motivate me by
Yeah,
challenging me in that way. So and it worked for sure.
absolutely. Great.
Hmm. Yeah. So um you got the entrepreneur bug. Were you an entrepreneur as a kid, or how did that happen for you?
Well, basically, when I was going to go into ministry, my mom was supportive, but she said, "Well, you're going to starve. How are you going to, how are you going to survive?"
Yeah.
She had, thoughts that I was going to do something that was going to make some more money. And, the church has always been fairly small where I've at, and God's always provided. But,
Hmm.
um, I had a sense of wanting to do something big. I really had a vision of that in my life. And so when entrepreneur type opportunities would come along, they really would grab my attention because I always felt just deep down inside that God wanted to provide what he needed to provide to do those huge things. And I
Yeah.
had these big visions that God would put there. And so opportunities would come and I'd grasp at them. And I want to tell you, that I found that I did one thing really well, and that was that I learned how to fail greatly. I mean, I just failed over and over again. Sometimes it was my fault. Other times it was basically because opportunities are often what they appear to be. The people change, they don't follow through, companies, change their comp plans, disappear, you name it. Um, I ended up in the pyramid schemes, you name it, all the stuff that everybody fears and worries about. I tried it all. I tried, to the point where basically I was ready to almost give up because people would see me coming and be like, "Oh, here he comes again." So I was burning bridges right and left. Some people,
Yeah.
I joke, I tried to build more pyramids than Pharaoh in Egypt. I mean, it was, that bad.
Yeah.
Uh, so the funny thing about it was that when the best actual opportunity came, I said no, because I was like, been there, done that. Everybody's
Exhausted.
heard from me. I'm
Yeah.
done. Just,
Hmm.
I'm done. And it happened actually. It's just amazing how God works because God used a guy, a young man that I've known in our church for the longest time, who basically was just trying to get a date. I mean,
Mm.
that's really what it was. He was messaging one of the girls that used to be in the youth group when he was in the youth group, when I led the youth group. Hadn't seen her in a long time. And she didn't want to go on a date with him, but basically she agreed to come to the Easter service. That's where she would come. And I hadn't
Mhm.
seen her in a while.
Yeah.
So she gets there and she says, hey, so, I just kind of started with this thing, you know how that is.
Yeah.
And you have a business background. I know you've tried stuff. I'd really like you to take a look at it. I'm like, no, thanks, but no thanks.
Mm-hmm.
She followed up with me though, about a week and a half later, and said, hey, have you thought about it? I said, yep, thought about it really quickly. Nope, not interested, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I knew it had something to do with finance. And I'm thinking to myself, I had just gone through a time at that point where financially, if there was one thing I knew nothing about, it was finance. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we were broke. I
Yeah.
mean, everything had gone wrong. 2008 had happened. Everything has just crashed. We were losing our house. Everything was just falling apart. And so if there's one thing I knew about money is that I didn't have it and I didn't know what to do with it. So I'm thinking I'm the last person in the world that's going to be doing anything with finance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, keep me away from that. But she persisted. And about a week later, she comes back to me. She said, I just need, can you just come in and make me look good? You don't have to do anything. Just kind of come in. And it's like, okay, but I'm not going to do anything. I'll put on a suit. I'll come in. I'll make you
Mm-hmm.
look good. And then we're done, right?
Yep.
And so I went in. At the time I was studying, I was just going to teach. Those who can do and those who can't teach. And if you're a teacher out there, I don't mean to be offensive on that. I mean, that's not really true, but that's a phrase that people use. So I figured I was going through a master's degree program for business organizational leadership. I was learning a lot of really great things at the time. And so I go in and I sit down with this guy who's sharing me this presentation. And I'm thinking, this is all the stuff I'm learning. I'm understanding everything that he's showing me. It's like, how am I? Wait a minute. What is this? This is not what I expected. And I'm learning about all this stuff and I'm seeing all this stuff and I'm thinking, huh, you know? And so the end time comes. And then the crazy thing is, he didn't even offer me the opportunity to do it. He just kind of said, okay, well, I'm going to give you this magazine. Why don't you take a look at it? And I'll talk to you maybe next week. I was ready. I was just going to jump in like I had with so many other things. And I was like, but it's almost like, wait, so I don't know if he did that on purpose. Some people call that the takeaway. And so I went home and I'm looking at this magazine and I'm looking at people in it and I'm looking at this thing with finances and I don't understand any of it. But something inside me, it's like, what if this is it? All the different things you tried. I mean, I think about like the books I've read. You've probably read this, where it says the man who was 3 feet from gold, and he didn't even realize it, right?
Yep.
And I'm thinking, what if this is it? So then I'm thinking, okay, here's the worst thing. Now I got to tell my wife that I'm going to try this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've already put her through so much stuff. I mean, how am I going to tell her, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go to her and I go, yeah, well, I kind of got this thing, I was kind of been looking at it and, I think I'm gonna do it. And she looks at me and she's like, you gotta be kidding me.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna do another thing? And I was like, well, how many things have I tried? It's only $125 to start with this thing, I mean, worst comes to happen, worst comes to worst, I'll learn something. I just figure I'll learn something,
Yeah.
And that's how I went into it. I didn't expect anything. I just expected the same thing that happened every other time. But this was it. Soon after, my son, who was young at the time, and basically he could sell ice to an Eskimo, but he was selling gym memberships for LA Fitness, hardly making anything. He had
Mm-hmm.
trained in the fire department. There were no jobs here in California because they had cut back on things. And it's like, why don't you come and look at this with me? And I think that was the difference. It was doing it with him. And then, wow, things just changed. We've been in it now since 2011 and things just took off.
No, that's great. There's so much relatability here, right?
Mm,
I know for myself, I have as a serial entrepreneur, I've tried so many things. I've
sure.
I've owned a body shop. I've owned a car dealership. I've, was a house flipper. I still own a construction company. Now I'm consulting. So it's required a lot for me to um become these certain people. But one thing I wrote down here, which is a nugget, and this is something that I share with my kids all the time, is you said learning to fail greatly or something like that, right? And I
Yeah.
have this saying is you win or you learn, right? But you never fail. Those are learning opportunities, right? So
Right.
every single time that they happen, my muscle for entrepreneurship has strengthened and gotten stronger, and I understand that my direction a lot better. So
Yeah.
when people, hear and understand that these things that these or failures, they're all learning opportunities happen, it's truly to strengthen you. And and similar to you, my wife has always been very supportive, but she's also known what she's kind of signed up for. All right.
Yeah.
This is in me, it's in my DNA to create things and put in the time.
Yeah.
So, in the back end, I'll reap the benefits, later. So just wanted to tell anybody that hears this, never be discouraged based on a new starting point. Right. So,
Sure. Yeah,
yeah.
and thinking back to what you were saying as well, because you asked me where the entrepreneur bug came from. I just remembered now that my dad, when I was growing up, my dad was always reading. He was always reading these books. And he was taking all these notes. He had these yellow notepads, and he
Hmm.
would print everything, and he'd be writing all these notes. And I remember him giving me books that he wanted me to read. I mean, the one that I read was something about, I think it was How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was Dale Carnegie book, I believe it was. And,
Hmm.
and I kind of read that, a little bit. But then, the problem is I found that most people in life seem to be better at how to lose friends and irritate people, and but still, I think there was something about it there that was kind of stuck in my brain a little bit. And then later on, when I start being exposed to these things, I start seeing some of the same books that I saw my dad reading, and it's like, so I don't know if it was kind of like he started the dream and then it kind of went to me and then it went to my son or whatever. I don't
Hmm.
know, but I think it started way before we ever got there, is what I'm saying.
No, for sure. It's typically something in it, like you said, that you kind of experienced a little bit that kind of gave you the bug.
Right.
I'm a big avid reader myself, and I picked it up in 2020 once the pandemic happened. I remember the book that I started with that I grew from, which was Start With Why. I don't know if you've ever read that, but it's
I,
Simon
yeah.
Sinek. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Oh, he's
Uh-huh.
great. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
great.
he's very good. And I just remember consuming that book and I felt like I grew. I recently referenced that book. It was like late last year. I had
Mhm.
to make a challenging business decision and I picked it up again, right? And I kind of, went through it and just to make sure that I'm making a sound decision. And similar to something that you mentioned, these books come back around. Sometimes you
Yeah,
might read something and it's not necessarily for that time, but if you circle back
right.
to it, it's exactly what you needed at the time, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Hmm. So and I do plan to um hand my kids certain books too. I have a couple on my shelf that I'm kind of like take notes on. I'm like, hey, this one is good for this one is good for that. So I'm similar to your dad in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So walk me through. I know we kind of skipped to to your entrepreneurship a little bit, but walk me through this time in your life um during this 0809 period, right? Because you said this ended up setting you up, later for success. But kind of walk me through what was going on during that time for you.
Well, that was a real dark time because I was coming off probably some of the 5 most difficult years of my life, in the sense that, there was a point where basically I had a lot of important people in my life. My mom was there, my dad was there. My mother-in-law was like a second mom to me, and she would be spending half the week with us as well. My mom and dad actually were living in a little back house right behind us. And then my mother-in-law would be out there too. And they all got along. They were all friends. And so, I mean, that was really great. And then suddenly my mom gets cancer. My mom was the healthiest of the 3. She was the youngest of the 3 and never really been sick in her life. And all of a sudden she gets cancer. And 6 months later, she's gone. I mean, one night we just come back. I had gone with her to the doctor that day, and they had thought they had got everything, but then she wasn't feeling well again. And I sat there with her while the doctor said, I'm so sorry, but it spread to your liver. And I remember my mom sitting there, I'm sitting in the room with her, and my mom's like, well, so what are you saying? And she's all, you need to get your affairs in order. And she's like, well, how long do I have? And she goes, 3 to 6 months, And I remember going home. On the way home, she went separate, and my mom asked me if I could stop by the store and get her like some Ensure or something, because she was having trouble eating, and it was just really hard. And I'm in CVS, and I'm picking this up for her, and for some reason something comes over me, and I'm saying to God, it's like, God, my mom's never been sick. She's just, I don't know how she's gonna handle it. I didn't know exactly what I was praying until afterwards. It's like, I don't want to see her suffer, please just don't have her suffer. Okay. That night we're going, somebody had brought her some food from some place that she really liked that we would always go to. She was trying to eat it, but it was hard for her to eat it. And she was watching a Laker game because she was a big Laker fan. And me and my wife, we go out to get something, to pick up something at the store. And when we come back, my dad's outside and he's panicking because she had collapsed. And we go in there and we call 911. 911 shows up. Basically, she had a heart attack. She never had a heart issue in her life. They tried to revive her. So anyways, 4 days later, we're in shock. She's gone. She's just gone. So then I'm left with my dad, who's now starting to fight with dementia. Okay. And about a year or so later, my mother-in-law, she's over and she has some type of infection. And all of a sudden the dogs start barking in the middle of the night, and we find her on the floor and she's gone. And then it's just him. And now we're trying to take care of him, and everything is just a mess.
Yep.
And all the stuff that would have been taken care of financially, and the coverage and the medical coverage and everything, was all through my mom, and it was all through her work. And so she had nothing set up because she figured she was going to be the last one around, not him.
Yeah.
And so now we can't even take him to the doctor, and we've got no money. And
wow.
the only way we could even get treatment is if he's bad enough that we would have to call 911 for him. Otherwise he's got no coverage. And so the whole thing was just a mess. And so then financially it was tough. And then the church was having trouble, and everybody was having trouble financially. And then all of a sudden they couldn't pay me what they were paying me before. And so now we're in a bad loan in our house because we refied and we were lied to, and we were given bad advice. And everyone was just scamming everybody at that time. And so basically how I end up helping people now is exactly to help people not have happen to them what happened to us. It's kind of how God did it. And so, so we got where we had to. We basically, I was working 3 jobs. I was trying to keep the home. I was driving limos for people, to take them to work. And these people were doing well. And I'm thinking, what do they know that I don't know? I mean, they don't seem to be smarter than me, but they obviously know something different than I do. And that was kind of that search was born inside of me to try to figure out, God, what is it? When it all came crashing down, we were about to lose our home. I remember the night before we were going to lose everything. And I was up, I was tossing and turning because I felt like such a failure. I felt like I had let down everybody and that I had let down in everything. And I remember asking God this. I said, God, I don't understand. I know you can't be wrong, but I don't understand what happened. All I've ever wanted to do is help people. I don't get it. And I don't want to get crazy here. I didn't see some bright light in the corner, you know, it wasn't what some loud voice from heaven, but
Yeah.
sometimes you just hear his voice, you just
Yeah.
know. And I remember it vividly. It was pretty much word for word what I'm going to tell you right now. It was, I need you to listen to me very carefully, and I need you to remember what I'm telling you. Because if you don't remember, the time's going to come when you're going to give up. Just when it looks like all the things I told you would happen are never going to happen, that's when it will. And in the next 7, 8 years or so, you know, there were many times when I had to remind myself of that conversation
Mm-hmm.
because it looked like I was just hearing things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's just, but there was something there. I mean, there were times when the opportunity came and everything and all that. It's like that I had to think to myself, people have asked me, they say, well, why did, you know, I can understand how people could give up. I was pretty much just about there. I was just going to settle. And people were like, well, why didn't you? I said, because I had to hold on to what I thought I heard God tell me. And to not, the only alternative was that then what I was seeing was the best it was ever going to be. And I just couldn't be okay with that. And so I just held on to it. I held on to it. I just kept pushing forward. It wasn't easy, but you know, eventually it turned around.
Thank you for um, sharing that very transparent moment. I think a lot of times when when things happen, you I have written down here seeing through the fog, right? And
Yeah,
I could say it's a challenge when things are going on around you or you're having a season kind of how you describe, right?
yeah,
And I've had several of those seasons where you can't even see your hand in front of your face because there's just so many different attacks from every which away, right?
absolutely. Yeah,
And to also gain clarity during that time and then also be able to reference back to this challenging moment is a gift in a lot of ways, right? Just
it is.
because it is because I've experienced a lot of things and I can see how being able to reference back to this time helps propel you and helps your clients can feel that from you, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you get where I don't think you can truly have empathy for people unless you've felt it,
Yeah.
unless you've really been there. And
Hmm.
so, I mean, there was a moment where we had left the house. We ended up having to rent this other home. Um, and it was bad. And there was a moment where we had paid rent. I wasn't getting paid at all now from church. They had no money.
Hmm. Hmm.
And my wife was a teacher. She get paid once a month. So we had just managed to barely pay rent so we could stay where we were. And we had $28 left and we weren't going to get any more income for 4 weeks.
Wow.
And I'm just like, oh my goodness, what in the world are we going to do? You
Hmm.
know, I mean, even just to get to the church, it would take gas in the car, you know,
Hmm.
and it's like, I don't see how in the world, you know, and it was nuts what started to happen.
Hmm.
Literally, she would put clothes in the dryer and money would fall out of the pockets, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
and it's like, Well, you have a bad habit of keeping your money in your pocket, but I'm glad you do right now. I mean, it happened like
Yeah.
3 times during the month,
Mhm. Yeah.
and somehow we got to the end of the month, a little check would come that we didn't expect, something would happen, and we
Mhm.
made
Mhm.
it was the greatest month ever
Yeah.
because of the fact that to have to be that dependent, I mean, the valuable lesson, I
Mhm.
I I could never have learned it any other way.
Yeah. Yeah, God finds a way to continually, provide. I remember a time too, this is towards the I think this might have been towards the back end of me flipping, like flipping houses, right? And obviously, when you sell is when you make your money and you expect this money to come. And then, for this one particular project, obviously we had finished the house and, we're waiting for this to close. And then I think we got like one extension. It was like 45 days or something like that. And
Mhm.
then right before the close, there was some sort of title issue, and then there was an additional time frame on top of that. So it's like 60 days 60 days since we were supposed to close. So it's a few months in between getting paid. So I remember when that second extension happened, and my wife and I are looking at each other, and we had like a bag of chicken,
Mhm.
frozen chicken, in there. And then we still kind of say this is kind of funny. You said chicken 8 ways. So I figured out a way to make make the chicken
Exactly.
8 different ways to kind of get through that time. And we kind of look back at it, and we kind of get a chuckle, we kind of laugh. But it's these types of stories that builds character, especially if you're going to pursue, entrepreneurship, because it's not a straight road,
Not at
so
all.
no, not at all. So thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
So then, so you did mention to me, during this time you were driving limos, and then you said you were gaining nuggets, from people that you were driving. So kind of walk me through some of those experiences and what you were hearing then.
Well, what I first thought at first was that wealthy people, because I was picking up some people from some pretty nice places.
Yeah.
And so my preconception was that wealthy people, they were rude, they were stuck up, they were snobby, they
Hmm.
looked down on everybody. A lot of them, things were just handed to them. I mean, that's a preconception I think a lot of people have.
Correct.
Um, and there were some like that, but I found out that most of the people that were really successful, not the fake ones that were
Hmm.
paying for things that they really couldn't afford, but the ones that were really successful, there was a real genuine um, character that they had. And I found that those were the people that actually were willing to share. They were willing to talk. They were willing to pass on what they had learned. And they were more than happy to. I was able to have some great conversations and ask some questions. And, at first I'm like, how are they going to look at me? Here I am driving them, they're not going to
Hmm.
listen to me.
Yeah. Hmm.
But some of them were just fantastic. And they shared with me on how they basically just learned skills and people skills and how to treat others and that the best way to win was to help others win. And when I heard that, it's like, oh, I thought it was all about just you winning. That was my first thing. And that was really impressed upon me. It's like you'll get what you want by helping others get what they're looking for, what they want, and it should always be a win-win type of thing, and it's other phrases that stuck out to me. It's always the right time to do the right thing. Things like, there's only one time and that's on time. Don't be late. Always be prepared. Habits that successful people did. And I thought, you know, they're not necessarily smarter, but these are things that work for them. And I haven't always done these things. And so I thought then I started looking for my opportunities, and I started looking for my opportunities to be around others that had accomplished and were willing to teach me. I think that's key. You got to be around others that are willing. I mean, you look at a person and you go to follow them and you think to yourself, would I want their results or not? Would I want their life or not? Okay. If the answer is no, then that's not who I'm supposed to be following. But if the answer is yes, and that person's willing to pass their wisdom on to me, then I should be smart and take advantage of that opportunity. And that's what I started trying to do.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm a big seminar guy,
Mhm.
and I go there. At first, I would go to seminars, and I would just kind of I sit front row, first seat, like right in front of the speaker, and there's a big benefit to that.
Sure.
One, I it allows me to kind of be very focused, and then the other, it allows me to connect with the speaker. If right after the talk or something like that, I could
Right.
get direct access to the speaker, and a lot of times these people consult and stuff like that. But I've been able to learn and grow so much from that. But one of the things that I started doing is when I would go to a seminar, I made a relationship. This happened twice. My mentor Jeff, I remember he dropped a big nugget on me that he sells a system that gets him to this custom home, or that gets him to this renovation, and I never had that thought process.
Right.
So then I reached out to him, and I said, "Hey, you mind if I fly into Michigan and kind of shadow you for a few days, because I want to hear kind of what you're doing, how you're doing it." And so I sat in on every meeting for 3 days, every conversation, really got to know him. And he said to me, he said, "Sam, no one has ever asked me how the sauce is cooked. Like, they might ask you one or two things, but you're here trying to really figure that out." Is
Sure.
because I looked up to him, and he
Right.
was doing something that I wanted to do. But that's kind of the level of pursuit you may need to have to achieve certain things. So, when you said, and then also too, I think about the Fords and the Rockefellers, and how they were able to really just galvanize people, and be
Sure.
able to move people. And that's kind of what you describe when you talk about that experience.
Yeah, somebody told me also when I was doing some, what do they call it? Toastmasters. It's like with these little speaking clubs and everything. And,
Yes.
and somebody got me in there, and I had been speaking for years, but they invited me to go over to this. And one guy, he was doing this thing, and he said something that kind of stuck with me. He said, people don't want to be sold, but everyone wants to buy.
Hmm.
Um, and at first I was like, that's a weird phrase, you know, but what it translated, what I found out was, like, if I sit down with someone and I'm trying to help them, nobody wants me to sell them something. So I don't
Hmm.
sell anybody anything, but what I do try to do now is, and this is something that God's really put in my heart over time, I don't care whether I sell them anything or not. Every encounter every person is a person of value. So even if this does not result in my intention of why I came in, the interaction is still going to be valuable. We're still going to build a relationship. And when you take that away and you really just care about a person and you want to get to know a person and you want to add value to that person, the rest of it takes care of itself. It really does most of the time. And if it's not them, it'll be someone else. But so I started to look at things differently. And I thought to myself also, uh, you know, there were some people that were helpful to me along the way when we were really down and out and having trouble, at least people that were supportive. I take great joy now in being able to go to someone else who maybe is in a bad spot and now be able to help them in a way that maybe I could have really used at the time.
No, for sure. That makes perfect sense to me. And I obviously, in the short time of kind of hearing your story and kind of connecting with you, I could feel that, from you. And we do a lot of we connected on foster care, and
Sure.
I do a lot of outreach to the homeless, and there's a reason why I do that, is because I am able to connect with people. I am able to, my perspective and my story is very broad, so I could
Yeah.
connect with high level executives, and I could connect with the homeless guy on the street and get a story and understand his struggles.
Yeah.
So it is a gift to be able to connect with people like that.
Amen.
Hmm.
Definitely.
Yep, yep, yep.
Well, it
So
says, what did the Apostle Paul say? He said, I was all things to all people. So it's great to be able to have those different type of connections.
no, for sure. I didn't know how much of a gift it was until now, where I use it. So,
Mhm.
so explain to everybody a little bit more about exactly what you guys do.
So what I basically do is we sit down with someone, what I basically do is I just want to find out about them. It's like, okay, what are your dreams? What are your goals? Tell me about your family. Tell me about what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to hope for in the future. What's most important to you? Okay. Um, and then the way that I would paint that is, okay, right now, as you're telling me this, you're at point A. All right. Where's point B? Okay. Where is it that you want to get to? What's the vision? Hopefully. And, if they're a person of faith, I'll tie it in more. Even if they're not, I'm gonna kind of go around and do it anyways. Where's the destination that you think you're trying to get to? Now, the problem is most people have the dream, but they don't know how to get there. They don't know how to get from point A to point B. So if I can give you the roadmap, if I can give you, at least in this area of life, the tools and the ways and the method and the system, you use that term, however it is, if I can help you get there and it's a way that makes sense for you, it makes sense for your family, it's within your budget, would you want to know how to get there? And we don't charge people for this. We don't charge when we sit down with them. We don't, there is no fee. So it's nothing like that. When we help people, the companies that we put them with pay us for doing that. But um, basically, I just sit down and have a conversation with them. I find out what they want, and then I show them what are the steps that are necessary, at least financially, to get there. And we deal with all kinds of things, insurance type of plans, life insurance type of things, college funding, uh, helping people roll over accounts that are retirement type accounts that maybe are in jeopardy and lose money in the market at times. They're, heavy taxation, different things that happen, and maybe they're not getting the results that they want. So we're basically, I mean, you mentioned house flipping. I show people how to basically build their own bank and then leverage that bank to flip homes and do things like that. I mean, there's so many different things that can be done, but a lot of people don't know how to do it. And so now, I mean, being in that place where I had no clue how to do any of this,
Yeah.
to be able to then come along and say, let me show you what I've learned. Let me
Hmm.
show you what I wish I knew when I was 30 years old like you are, or 35 years old like you are. If I could put you in a better position for the future. And so I just come alongside them and I teach them. And so they either say, yeah, I want it. And if they do, I help them. Or if not, we part as friends. At least
Hmm.
we made a, so I basically educate and enable is what I do through my business.
Yeah, that sounds like my style as well. I educate you, and I always say, if I can help you, I'll help you. If I
Right.
can't help you, I'll give you the best advice possible. Right.
Exactly.
So I can help you. Right.
Yeah.
Because helping you may not be, working with me. It may be a
Mhm.
very different direction, and I will always be transparent in that. But no, that makes sense. Makes a ton of sense. What would you say is some characteristics of a great entrepreneur?
Well, a great entrepreneur is always learning.
Yep.
A great entrepreneur, I think what makes a great entrepreneur is someone who's always serving
Yep.
as well. Um, it's really you've got to be a servant of bringing value to other people. That's really
Hmm.
that's really what it is. A great entrepreneur also is not close-minded because things change over time. I mean, one of my early jobs, for example, was working at Sears. And, who hears much about Sears these days? But Sears was the number one retailer in America for many decades.
Hmm.
Okay. But around the time that I was working at Sears, Sears didn't want to change.
Mm.
Sears thought that they had everything all together and they did not. I don't like using this term, but it fits here. They did not evolve with what was happening. Um, and because they were slow to do so, now they basically barely exist.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, an entrepreneur, like for instance, in our business, back in 2020, which obviously was a crazy year for the world,
Hmm.
um, we went from meeting mostly in person to going on Zoom and going on platforms like this, which I was kind of resistant at first, but
Yep.
now it's the greatest thing that ever happened.
It
I mean,
is. It
yeah,
is.
I mean, we're not in the same location, but we're
No,
connecting.
for sure.
Um, and I, been running appointments this week with people that are in Iowa, halfway across the country from me, all kinds of stuff. In the past, I would have had to map that out. Now we have the amount of people that we work with and that come into our lives now because we're able to meet people anywhere from the
Yep.
comfort of our own office or seat. And so, but there's still people I know in our industry that still want to do it the way we did it in 2019. And they're
Yeah,
falling way behind and they
for
can't
sure.
figure out how come you're so far ahead of me? Well, because you're
Hmm.
still stuck in a rut.
Yeah.
So entrepreneurs need to be innovative and they need to use innovations and realize that needs change and they need to stay up with that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great. No, all of that resonates with me. Um, servant of bringing value to people. And for me, it says "duh," but for others, it may not. It may not be. And also open minded, right? Always learning. Like all of those things resonates with me because I truly feel like you're only as good as how you adapt and how you grow and how you learn. And if you're
Yeah.
constantly in, before 2020, and I read that book, Start With Why,
Hmm.
I hadn't read anything. And after I grew from there, and then I started reading a bunch of books per month, I was like, what was I doing in my 20s? I had no idea where I was or what I wasn't growing,
Yeah.
Now I am constantly feeding myself something, to grow. I'm just looking for one more nugget. I'm just looking for one more thing that I could apply and put in my tool bag for, for growth later, And I
Right.
think it's that hungry spirit that helps you grow into, who you're looking to be or that vision that you have, right?
Yeah, in fact, you just touched on that, and I've heard many a successful entrepreneur say this, and that is stay hungry. You got to stay hungry. That's very important. Don't just get satisfied.
No, for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. One of the because you one of the things that we always ask everyone that comes on is what are your best lessons learned from life and in business? So I'm going to ask you, Jay, and just think about it for a little bit. What are your best lessons learned from life and in business?
Well, the key in business for me, and this is the one that will stand out,
Yeah.
was I was really trying to make it happen, right? So I was doing ministry, but it's like, oh, I gotta get this business to happen because I gotta get the money so that I can fund the ministry, so I can do all those different things. So I'm pressing, I'm pressing, I'm pressing, I'm pressing, I'm pushing.
Hmm.
And it almost felt at times like God literally was preventing it. It's like he was sticking roadblock after roadblock in front of me. And I'm like, what? Why? You know, what is going on? Why do I feel like you're fighting me when you've
Yeah.
put me in this, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, and I'm stressed and I'm going to him and it's like, I need a break. I need a break. I just need a breakthrough. I need it, you know, and all this.
Mhm.
And it's like, again, God's like, why don't you just quit worrying about it?
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you mean quit worrying about it? I need the money. I need the stuff.
Mhm.
And I would even tell God, if we could just get the money part out of the way,
Mhm.
then I can give you my full attention.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, one day it was like, ding, ding, ding,
Mhm.
wrong answer, wrong answer.
Yeah.
What does the Bible say? You seek first the kingdom of
Kingdom
God
of God. Yeah.
and his righteousness.
Mhm.
Then the other stuff will be added.
For
And I'm
sure.
like, yeah, but we're trying to. He's like, no, wrong order.
Mhm.
So you've tried it your way. How's it working for you?
Yeah.
Hmm, not too good. This is very frustrating.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, from now on, why don't you just try this? Just seek me first and let me figure out the rest of it. Okay. I kid you not. It wasn't instantaneously, but stuff started to change. The right people started to all of a sudden show up. The right clients started to all of a sudden show up. Stuff started to happen, things that looked like they were never going to happen, like that original thing that God told me. All of a sudden, it's like, how did this just happen? Never would have seen that coming. And it started to really change. And so I think the greatest lesson I learned, whether it's that or whatever, and I teach people this all the time, don't get the order wrong. You know, don't get the order wrong. I know it's tempted to try to go ahead and get it taken care of, but he already promised he can take care of it. So who could take care of it better, you or him? So just trust him to get the order correct because he's the one that said that's the way it will happen. So fine, do that then and let him show you.
No, man, that makes perfect sense. And one of the things that we do is we counsel couples, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things that comes up is this order that you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
And the missing link in us coaching couples is it's typically communication, but it has to do with the order, right? So
right.
we always use, are you guys praying together, right?
People hate
Because
that question, huh?
people hate that, but that's where we start first.
Right.
Reason being is if you're having trouble communicating with your partner,
Mhm,
right? And then now you are taking this to God, right? You are
mm.
communicating with your partner, but you're doing it in a way that God is first,
Yeah.
right? And that opens up the door for a different level of communication with your partner that you didn't have before. So
Mhm.
that's why we always start there, right? And making sure that we get that order right. Sorry about the plane over the head.
Oh, I couldn't hear it. So,
Oh, okay. So we start with making sure that that order is correct
yeah.
in everything that we do, and then from there everything kind of falls into place. Like even with us in the house,
Mhm.
right? The kids know, uh first is God, then obviously then your mommy, but and then as the leader at home, I'm constantly serving. I'm the servant leader, right? And so
Yeah.
I talk to my kids with the same language. Who's my best servant? Who's serving, in this capacity, right? And there's
Yeah.
this trickle down effect.
Yeah, my wife will do the thing where she did that to me several times in the past. I mean, totally the right appropriate question, but she'd be like, "Well, so have you prayed about it?"
Yeah.
And I started to get really annoyed with that
I know.
question,
I
you know,
know. I
because
know.
it's like, why do you have to ask me and I'm sitting there like, I don't have time,
Yeah, exactly.
I can't say, "Well, no, I didn't pray about it," but it's like I'm thinking to myself, "I don't have time for that. I'm trying to get this to work," and it's
Hmm.
but then I'm convicted going,
Yeah,
"What are you
you're right.
are you
I gotta
dumb?
I
You know
gotta
you need to pray about it." But,
exactly. Yeah. So no, that's absolutely absolutely right. So Any other words of advice you want to leave us with?
I think the words of advice that are probably pop into my mind are, because I'm getting older right now, and that's something that's true for everybody,
Yeah.
every day of our life. I think it's important to learn from the past, but not allow it to define you.
Hmm.
Only in the sense that you grow from it.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake that a lot of people make is they stay there. And
Hmm.
so because they keep beating themselves up over opportunities missed, mistakes maybe they've made, poor
Yeah.
choices. And so because they stay there, the present remains it remains the past.
Correct.
And so that's a huge mistake. I know that I can look back in my life right now and I could go, wow, I wasted so much time.
Hmm.
There's so many things I would do differently, but I can't change those now. But what I
Right.
can do is I can learn and I can look forward. And I think that now the greatest wisdom that I have is this thing with supply and demand.
Hmm.
When there's a lot of supply, um, then things aren't as valuable
Hmm.
to us. So if we
Yeah.
think we have all the time in the world,
Hmm.
then maybe we don't value the time and the opportunities that we have as much because we figure we have a lot of them. But now, as I get older, so every time I'll share a message or a sermon or even come on a podcast like your show right now,
Hmm.
I look at it as this is just not another thing I'm doing. I don't know how
Hmm.
many more of these opportunities that I have.
Correct.
Or the person that's listening right now, this may be one of their last opportunities, you
Hmm.
know? So I have to consider that, you know what? Because supply could be short, the value is very high. I need to
Correct.
look
Correct.
at it and take it very seriously. And so the longer I live and the more that I see that now, I take those things more seriously. And I would encourage everybody, every encounter, every appointment, everything that you do, everything that God gives you another chance to do, it has some value to it. So take it seriously and take in the moments. I spent so much time in my life always looking to a preferred future and not
Mm.
taking in all of the moment that was there. That was a mistake. And
Yeah, for sure.
I want to learn from that.
Yeah. Enjoy the journey.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
exactly. No, 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 for sure. Appreciate you. Thank you for coming on today. Thank you for imparting your wisdom and your life experiences, on us, so we could continue to grow ourselves, and also the principles that you dropped in your faith. These are all things that help people move along, right, and grow in that capacity. So, I just want to say thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I enjoyed it. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you for joining us with the Pro Design Builder. It's not just about building a business, it's about building a vision and a life by design.